Good morning, dear students. I hope you all are fine. So, let us start your 13th chapter now. And the name of the chapter is Too Dear. So, let's read what is inside this chapter. So, before starting our chapter, they have given you introductory part. So, what is given here? Have you ever thought about the hardships faced by a prisoner? What do you think someone imprisoned for life cares for the most? Moral values, good food, and freedom. Go to home. So, the following story is a humorous account of the troubles of dealing with a criminal in a kingdom of Monaco. So, means we never thought what kind of feelings the prisoners have and what they want actually. So, what they face in the prison. So, that kind of things are. What is being faced by the, you can say, prisoners, that is not basically given in this chapter, but actually this is a story of a prisoner. So let us start reading. So near the borders of France and Italy, on the shores of Mediterranean Sea, lies a tiny little kingdom of kingdom called Monaco. So and the place where you can say from where the story is, that is Monaco. Actually this is a place at the border of France and Italy, on the shores of Mediterranean Sea. And many a small country town can boast more inhabitants than this kingdom, for there are only about 7,000 of them in all. And if all the land in the kingdom were divided, there would not be an acre for each inhabitant. So now they are talking about, means how small that kingdom was, that there were only 7,000 people were there in that kingdom. Inhabitant means to say people who live that in that particular area. And the land was also like, if they started you can say giving dividing the land among the inhabitants, no, not even an acre can be given to an inhabitant. So that area was small, and people there were also living in less number then. But in this kingdom, in this toy kingdom, there is a real kinglet. So toy kingdom, why they are calling it as a toy kingdom? Because it is of very small area. So that's why they are referring that it is a toy kingdom. So there was a real kinglet now, because they are talking in a humorous and funny way. They're not calling the king or emperor to a person who is the Raja of that kingdom, but they are calling that person as a kinglet. Kinglet means to say a humorous word for a kingdom of a very small country, derived from the same way as the words like piglet, booklet is, you can say, for small book we call it as a booklet. In the similar way, because that kingdom was small, so the king of that kingdom is called here kinglet. And he has a palace and courtiers and ministers and a bishop and generals and an army. So like all the kings, he was having a palace also, courtiers, ministers, a bishop means to say a senior priest, and generals and an army. It is not a large army, only 60 men in all, but still it is an army. So they are again saying that army was also not large, because people there were only 7 or 8,000. So army was also of 60 men only, but still there was army. There were also taxes in this kingdom as elsewhere. So like means they're talking about all the system was like all other kingdoms, but the thing is that that kingdom was very small. Now it happened a few years ago that a murder was committed in this Troy king's domain. The people of that kingdom are peaceable. So what happened, actually that kingdom was a very peaceful kingdom, but at one time what happened, a murder was committed, and such a thing had not happened before, and that kind of things were not normal in that kingdom, because people were living peacefully, there was nothing like murders etc. But once this happened, the judges assembled with much ceremony and tried the case in the most judicial manner. So now, as you know, for punishing that criminal, judges assembled, and in judicial manners means to say connected with the court or the judges. So जैसे सब जहाँ जैसे किसी kingdom का rule होना चाहिए, न्याय होता है. So in the similar way they get together to solve that case. There were judges and prosecutors and jurymen and barristers. Prosecutors means to say lawyers who lead the case against somebody. Barristers again means lawyers. So all the people who can be involved, who could be involved in the uh, justice process, they were there. They argued and judged, and at last they condemned the criminal to have his head cut off as law directs. So, what they concluded at the end, they decided a punishment of cutting the head of the criminal. So far, so good. Next, they submitted the sentence to the king. So they submitted this result to the king. The king read the sentence and confirmed it. If the fellow must be executed, execute him. So yes, execute means to kill, means legal punishment of killing is called execution. So the king also ordered that yes, if you want, if this is the punishment that you have decided for this person, so yes, we will do this. There was only one hitch in the matter, and that was that they had neither a guillotine for cutting heads off nor a executioner. So what was their problem now? Hitch means to say a small delay. So what was a small delay in their execution of that person was that they were not having guillotine, means a special instrument that is used for cutting the heads, and executioner means a person who can execute the convicts or the criminals. The ministers considered the matter and decided to address an inquiry to French government, asking whether the French could not lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head. And if so, would the French kindly inform them what the cost would be? Now, as you know, at the starting of the chapter, it is mentioned that that country, Morocco, or you can say, was in between two countries. They were having two neighbor countries, France and Italy. So, what they decided, they were not having guillotine to cut the head off, and also they were not having executioner. So they decided, let us take help from the neighboring country France. So they wrote a letter to France government that please provide us that machine for cutting head of the person and executioner also, and please let us know what would be your charges, how much money you will take in return. A week later, the reply came: a machine and an expert could be supplied, and the cost would be 16,000 francs. Now, the France government replied that yes, we will send you that machine also and expert also for cutting the head, but the cost would be of 16,000 francs. Francs means to say the name of the currency at that time, which was used. Nowadays I think euro is used, but at that time, like in our country, the name of the currency is rupees. So at that time, French people use this currency franc. This was laid before the king. He thought it over. 16,000 francs? The wrench is not worth the money, said he. So then the king, when king heard about this amount, he said, yes, this is too much, that 16,000 francs we have to pay for this wrench. Wrench means to say, you can say evil spirit, unpleasant person. Why we waste our 16,000 francs? So can't it be done somehow cheaper? Why 16,000 francs is more than the 2 francs a head on the whole population? The people won't stand it, and it may cause a riot. So the king is saying that the 16,000 amount is very big amount, and let us arrange some cheaper way, because if we put this much money for executing this person, it will lead the burden of 2 franc on each of the person in this kingdom. Means we have to take 2 francs as a tax from all of those, and it will cause riots in the country. So a council was called to consider what could be done, and it was decided to send a similar inquiry to the king of Italy. Now again, the ministers, you can say, they had a meeting, and they decided that let us send the same kind of letter to Italy, because Italy was the next neighbor, another neighbor that they have. Then the Italian government wrote that they would have pleasure in supplying both a machine and an expert, and the whole cost would be 12,000 francs, including traveling expenses. So now Italy government also replied. They said that okay, no problem, we will send you a machine also and an expert also for cutting the head, and we will charge 12,000 francs. So this was cheaper, but still it seemed too much. Now it is, as you know, earlier France was demanding 16,000 francs, so Italy was demanding 12,000 francs, which seems cheaper than France. But although they have asked 12,000 francs, but this is also not a small amount. So it would still mean nearly 2 francs more per head on taxes. Again, it would be a burden on their people. Another council was called. Again, they have called the ministers. They discussed and considered how it can be done, how it could be done with less expense. So again, ministers have a meeting, had a meeting, and they decided how we can do this task with less money. Could not one of the soldiers perhaps be got to do it in a rough and homely fashion? So they were suggesting different kind of ways that can be adopted. So they were thinking like, we are having soldier, we are having army, why don't we ask from any soldier that please cut off the head of any person, this person. So without having any expert or without having any machine, we can do this. The general was called and was asked, can't you find us a soldier who could cut the man's head off? General means to say the head of the army. So that person was called by the ministers or the courtiers, and they asked from the general that can you supply us army men who can do this task? In the war, they don't mind killing people. In fact, that is what they are trained for. So they are saying that, okay, this is the work for the army men, means they have to kill the people in war also, and they are trained for doing these kind of things. So the general talked it over with the soldiers to see whether one of them would not undertake the job. So usne bola, generally he talked with his army men and he asked whether somebody agreed to this or not, but none of the soldiers would do it. No, they said, we don't know how to do it, it is not the thing, it is not a thing we have been taught. So soldiers simply said, no, we cannot do this because we are not trained how to execute a person or how to cut off the head of a person, we cannot do this. So they refused to do that. Then on the next page, so what was to be done? Again, the ministers considered and reconsidered. Considered and reconsidered means to say they were thinking again and again. They were trying to find an idea for the killing of that man. They assembled a commission and a committee and a subcommittee, and at last they decided that the best thing would be to alter the death sentence to one of imprisonment of life. So assembled a commission, official group of people who have been given the responsibility of finding out someone. Committee is also a group of people who was chosen to make some kind of decisions. So they have made commission, committee, subcommittee, and finally they decided, let us change the death sentence of this person, let us reduce the punishment of this person. So we will give lifetime imprisonment to this person, means this person has to stay in the prison, in the jail for his lifetime. This would enable the king to show his mercy, and it would some cheaper also, it would come cheaper. So इससे जो king है वो अपनी mercy मतलब दया वाली भावना भी show कर सकते हैं, and ये इसमें कोई खर्चा भी नहीं आएगा. The king agreed to this, and so the matter was arranged. The only hitch now was that there was no suitable prison for the man sentenced for life. So now what was the problem? कि उनके पास कोई imprisonment के लिए कोई prison नहीं थी. There was a small lockup where people were sometimes kept temporarily, but there was no strong prison fit for the permanent use. Because that kingdom, it is mentioned that that kingdom was free from any kind of crime. These kind of things not normally happen in that kingdom. Because of that, that kingdom was not having any proper jail or prison. So they were having only a temporary prison, but not from the permanent use. However, they managed to find a place that would do, and they put the young fellow there and placed a guard over him. So they arranged up, you can say, place and converted that into a jail and put a guard outside that jail, and that person was put into the jail. The guard had to watch the criminal and had also to fetch his food from the palace kitchen. So now guard has to stand outside that jail, and was at morning and evening that guard has to provide the food to that person from the palace. The prisoner remained there month after month till a year had passed. But when a year had passed, the kinglet, looking over the account of his income and expenditure, one day noticed a new item of expenditure. Now again, this thing continued, and 1 year passed, and after that what happened? One day that kinglet was looking on his, you can say, budget of his kingdom, means what is his income, from where he earns the money, expenditure means where he spends the money. So he was looking for his budget, and what he found that this was for keeping this, there is a new thing in the expenditure, means जिस पे वो खर्चा कर रहे हैं उसमें एक नई चीज़ शामिल है. And what is that? This was for keep of the criminal, nor was it is a small item either. So जो खर्चा वो criminal पे कर रहे थे वो था, and it was not a small amount. So what happened then, there was a special guard, and there was also the man's food. It came to more than 600 francs a year, and the worst of it was that the fellow was still young and healthy and might live for 50 years. So now king was, you can say, kinglet was counting the total expenditure. So because that man was provided food also, and there was a guard also outside his jail, so including all those expenses, it would be a amount of 600 francs a year. So, and it is worst of it, why? Because that fellow man or that person was young at that time, and he was healthy also. So king thought that he would not die for the next 50 years, and we will have to spend this much amount every year. So this is again, you can say that he do not want to do. When one come to reckon it up, the matter was serious, it would never do. So the king summoned his ministers and said to them. So again, reckon means to say calculate amount. So when one come to reckon up it, so the matter was serious. So again, king summoned means to say called his minister, and to do something about it. You must found some cheaper way of dealing with this rascal. The present plan is too expensive. And the ministers met and considered and reconsidered, till one of them said, "Gentlemen, in my opinion, we must dismiss the guard." So then again, ministers, you can say, they had a meeting and they think about it, and means they finally they found an idea. One of them said that, let us do one thing, let us just remove the guard, means जो उस पे गार्ड के लिए हमने इंसान को रखा हुआ उसको हटा देते हैं. But then rejoined another minister, the fellow will run away. And another minister said that if we remove the guard, he will run away. Well, said the first speaker, let him run away. So they reported the result to of their deliberations to the kinglet. Deliberations means to say long discussions. So they submitted the result of deliberations to the kinglet, and he agreed with them. The guard was dismissed, and they waited to see what would happen. Now उन्होंने ये चीज़ मान ली, उन्होंने गार्ड को डिसमिस कर दिया, हटा दिया, एंड दे वर वेटिंग के देखते हैं क्या होगा. All that happened was that at dinner time the criminal came out, and not finding his guard, he went to king's kitchen to fetch his own dinner. So earlier guard was taking for lunch, breakfast, dinner for that person. Now he found that there is no guard outside, so he simply goes into the kitchen of that king and bring his own dinner. He took what was given to him, returned to the prison, shut the door on himself, and stayed inside. So next day, same thing happened. He went for his food at the proper time, but as for running away, he did not show the least sign of it. So what is humorous about it? Now see, that person is eating food, that person is going to kitchen to bring his food, dinner, lunch, breakfast, and then again he came back to his prison. He sit over there, eat, but he was not even having any kind of idea to run out of that prison. Why would he run? Means उसको खाना मिल रहा था, आराम से खा रहा था, तो उसको भागने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं थी. That's why he was there. What was to be done? They considered the matter again. Now ministers were again thinking about this कि ये तो भाग ही नहीं रहा. What we can do now? We shall have to tell him straight out, said they, that we do not want to keep him. Now one of the ministers said that let us tell him that we don't want to keep him, and he must go from here. So the minister of justice had him brought before him. Why do you not run away? Said the minister. There is no guard to keep you. You can go where you like. The king will not mind. So now the minister is asking from him that why don't you run from this prison, and there is no guard outside, and also king would not mind if you will run. So you can run. I dare say the king would not mind, replied the man, but I have nowhere to go. What can I do? You have ruined my character by your sentence, and people will turn their backs on me. Besides, I have got out of the way of working. You have treated me badly. It is not fair. In the first place, when once you sentenced me to death, you ought to have executed me, but you did not do it. Now that person is saying, actually he's saying that, uh, I have no place to run away. You have sentenced, you have made, you can say, my image criminal like image, so people will turn their back on me, means people will not accept me like this. I am a criminal now, so they will not allow me to live in the society. Also, he is complaining like that कि पहले आपने मुझे डेथ सेंटेंस दिया था, आपने वो नहीं पूरा किया. And also he is saying that कि now I am not, nowadays I am not working, so now I am not having the habit of working, so that's why it's very difficult for me. That is one thing, and I did not complain about that. He said that I even don't complained it at that time, that you haven't hung me. Then you sentenced me to imprisonment for life and put a guard to bring me my food. But after a time, you took him away again, and I had to fetch my own food. Now see, means this person is behaving like a king. He is saying that कि आपने तो मुझसे मेरा गार्ड भी छीन लिया जो मेरे खाना लेके आता था, अब तो वो भी मुझे खुद को लेके आना पड़ता है. अगेन आई डिड नॉट कंप्लेन, बट मैंने फिर भी कोई कंप्लेन नहीं की. बट नाउ यू एक्चुअली वॉन्ट मी टू गो अवे, and I can't agree to that. You may do as you like, but I won't go away. Now that person, he's clearly saying that I don't go away, don't go anywhere. You have done these kind of things with me, and I never complain, but this is too much. Now now you are saying that I should go away from here, but I don't go anywhere, I will live here. What was to be done? Once more the council was summoned. Again king summoned the councillors, and he asked what we can do now. What course could they adopt? The man would not go. Whatever they were doing, the man decided that I will not go. Finally they decided to offer him a pension. Pension means to say an amount of money paid by a government to someone who is old or sick. So they decided that we will fix a fixed pension to this person, and we will ask from this person to leave this place. The sum fixed was 600 francs, and this was announced to the prison. So now a prisoner. So now they decided that we will pay 600 francs as a pension to this person, and they said this thing to that prisoner. Well, said he, I don't mind so long as you undertake to pay it regularly. On that condition, I am willing to go. So that person said, okay, if you will pay this much amount as a pension to me, then there is no problem. So, but you should have to pay regularly, then I will go out, go from this place, go away from this place. So the matter was settled. He received 1/3 of his annuity in advance and left the king's dominion. So now what happened कि उसने जो उसका 1/3 बनता था, ईयर का जितना भी बनता था टोटल, उसका 1/3 उसने लिया, and he leave the area of the king. It was only a quarter of an hour by rail, and he immigrated means to say left one's country to go and live in another country permanently. So he left that country and settled just across the frontier means to say border between two countries, where he bought a bit of land. उसने थोड़ी सी land खरीदी and started market gardening, and now lives comfortably. He always go at proper times to draw his pension, and when he feels like now this is the time to take pension, then he visit that kingdom and draw out his pension. It is a good thing that he did not commit his crime in a country where they do not grudge expense to cut man's head off or to keeping him in prison for life. Grudge means to say something, to do something unwillingly, तो पछतावा होना किसी चीज़ का. So मीन्स उसने ऐसा क्राइम तो कमिट कर दिया, लेकिन ऐसी कंट्री में नहीं किया जहाँ पे एक बंदे का सर काटने में ही लोग मतलब उस चीज़ को एक्सपेंसिव माने और उसको पूरे पहले उसकी लाइफ टाइम के लिए उसके इम्प्रिजनमेंट करके उसको पाल रहे थे, देन उसकी पेंशन जो थी वो फिक्स कर दी. सो दिस वॉज टोटली अ ह्यूमरस स्टोरी, एंड दिस चैप्टर वॉज रिटन बाय लियो टॉल्स्टॉय. सो ही वॉज अ वेरी फेमस रशियन राइटर and greatest novelist of his times. So this is all about your chapter. So students, now this is the first part of the video. We will cover its exercise, vocabulary part, and the grammatical portion in the second part of this video. So for this time, this is all. So thanks for listening and have a nice day.